Good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live, like every Wednesday. Today, I have next to me on the screen Orlando Sanchez. Orlando, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good to be with you.
What are you writing over there? You're
I
taking
was just
notes?
I was taking notes. I'm writing the names down of all the people we met in Texas because I want to acknowledge them during the course of the program.
Yeah, so tell us about your trip. You were like to different towns the last week and visiting. I saw many pictures on Facebook. And tell us about that trip and how it goes.
Well, it went very well. As you know, we had a presentation up in Dallas on Monday. Then I drove back to Houston, and then Tuesday we jumped on a Southwest flight back to Dallas, and then caught a connection over to Lubbock, Texas, where we met with Betty Cardenas, who's the national chairman of the Republican National Hispanic Assembly out in Lubbock, Texas, and her son, who is the executive director of Bienvenido. It's a nonprofit organization that makes sure that everyone in this country is bienvenido. Abraham Enriquez, a handsome young
We
man,
had
very intelligent,
Betty in the
and
show. In the
then
show.
we went over. I'm sorry, what?
We had Betty in the show before.
Yes, we have. And then we went over to Midland and we met with the former mayor of Midland, Ernest Angelo, who was a real leader in the Republican Party. And we met with Charlene Romero McBride, who's the executive director of the Hispanic Cultural Center in Midland. And then we had some meetings. Adrian Carrasco, a businessman in the energy sector, who's also on the board of the Midland College. We had the pleasure of visiting with him. And then Miguel Morales, who works for a company called Bentag. Then we met with Juan Hernandez, and then we ended up in El Paso, Texas, and we met with Bob Pena of the Republican Party. We met with Ray Baca, the chairman of the Republican Party in El Paso, and we also met with the former chairman of the Republican Party, Adolfo Teles, which, interestingly enough, Andrea, is the owner of Rosas Cantina in El Paso. And if any of you are country western music fans, you'll know that Marty Robbins had a great hit. I don't know if it was late 50s, early 60s, a song called El Paso, which he sang about Rosas Cantina. So it was a real pleasure meeting him. And we met the former mayor and former state representative of El Paso, D. Margo. And I can't forget a young man we met in Lubbock who's the chairman of the Lubbock Republican Party. His name is, and for those of you that love the High Plains, you're going to love his name. He's a brilliant attorney in Lubbock, but his name is Cole Shooter. He's the chairman of the Lubbock County Republican Party. What an engaged young man, really looking for opportunities to grow the party in Lubbock. And so, Andrea, it was a very good trip. And I might say that at the end of the afternoon on, can't remember if it was probably Thursday, my traveling companion wanted to go to the Lucchese outlet. And if you go to my Facebook page, you'll see that we bought 7 pair of Lucchese boots. So it was a great
Wow.
trip.
Wow. And we're going to continue to go to small towns across the state because it's important to not only to visit those towns, but to, engage the people that are doing everything to keep the values on our state. And the small towns are very active these days. And I'm so proud of them. We're going to have very soon a trip also to Longview on March 16. We're going to have dinner over there with leaders in the community. And what is the next trips that you're planning also besides that?
Well, this week I'm going to be down in, I think, Baytown, and then I'm going to be addressing the Brazos, I think, Republican women. Then I'm going to be in Anderson County, and we've got the Rio Grande Valley scheduled down in Harlingen, McAllen, and all those areas. And so, excuse me, we're really quite active. So we're looking forward to it and meeting great people, great Hispanic conservative leaders across the state. That they're on serving on city councils, school boards. They're serving on local community college boards. And, it's really exciting to see the infrastructure. Also, Andrea, I want to congratulate you and the Venezuelan community because this morning there was a publication, and I'll pull it up in just a minute so I can cite it correctly. But The study indicates that Colombians and Venezuelans voted overwhelmingly for the conservative candidates in the 2020 election. Not only was there a shift that the Democrats and the liberals are denying in the Latino community, voting more this time for conservatives, but the movement was phenomenal among Venezuelans and Colombians. And you were telling me a moment ago, which corroborates the statement made in the article about why Colombians and Venezuelans went conservative. So why don't you tell us, since you're a Colombian, why you think Colombians went for the conservatives?
Well, Orlando, having Venezuela as a neighbor, we've been seeing for decades the situation that they've been living in the country. The socialists being destroying the country, and I have many Venezuelans friends are here that they're very conservative, and they're very they're voting conservative values because they were flying, they were fleeing the country because of that. They don't want to leave that situation. They were like leaving everything over there and leaving some of the part of the families and come to this country because it was unsustainable, the situation. But saying that, I am Colombian, and we had a of Venezuelan coming to our country, millions of people coming to our country, but not only our country, Ecuador, Peru, everywhere in Latin America. So now we're facing not only having the Venezuelans leaving their country, but also we were this close 2 years ago to have a candidate that his last name is Petro, and he was all about communists. And we were so afraid that that was going to happen also in our country. So definitely, if we are like leaving our countries because of that, and estamos huyendo, estamos corriendo, we're running out of that. So we don't want this here because we're coming here for better opportunities, and to see this country trying to go that way, of course, it's so sad. So if we can vote our values and vote conservative, of course, we want the country to be part of what we're flying over there. That's why this article. I mean, you need to send me that article. It's a reality. Colombian and Venezuelans, we don't want that for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, of course, me being a Cuban immigrant, same thing. I mean, we're all Venezuelans, Colombians, Nicaraguans, Cubans. We've had a taste of socialism. And so when we see AOC and we see some of the Biden, almost $2 trillion giveaway of the taxpayers' money, I know we've been going through a hard time with the pandemic. But the best solution, in my opinion, Andrea, is to get the economy going again. Yeah, take the protective measures that you need to take, but my God, don't shut down the economy. Government has a duty to, make sure that the economy is vibrant. Yes, they need to feed us information on how to stay safe, and we certainly don't mind the CDC giving us that advice. But I think, for example, bringing it back to Texas, I'm delighted that the governor made a change, as did Montana and has other states, that we're going to get back to business. I'm sorry.
I was going to ask you about I was going to ask you about that. What is your thoughts about the big announcement from?
Well, I mean, it's time. I mean, we cannot have people dependent on government cheese. In other words, you can't sit around and wait for your slab of cheese, your powdered milk to come in from Washington, D.C. People want to work. People want to feed their families. People want to grow their businesses. People want to choose where they send their children to school. People want to decide for themselves if they're going to go to mass or they're going to go to church on Sunday, and don't need the federal government or some state bureaucrat telling us when we can go to church and when we can gather with grandma. We're sick of it. Now, I understand it's important to wear a mask. It's important to keep social distance. It's important to wash your hands. We're going to continue to do that. Those are good, sound pieces of advice. But we certainly don't need the government, sending their employees home on vacation for an entire year. The state of Texas has not allowed people to register their vehicles when their registration expires. It's absolutely ridiculous. The state is losing millions and millions of dollars that go to build our highways and bridges. And, when you try to go online to renew your registration, because, if the county was shut down several months ago, you're not eligible to do it online. I mean, it's just government is absolutely dysfunctional. So I'm glad that the governor made the decision to allow Texans, and especially yesterday on Texas Independence Day. Yesterday was the day marking, I think, the 148th independence of the state of Texas, and good for the governor. Now, he did build some safety measures into this, Andrea. So when there's a 15% of the local regional hospital beds are occupied with COVID patients, the counties can then decide to go back and institute measures that are appropriate based on CDC guidance. But I like what the governor did.
And also, I think it should be a personal decision. If you want to wear a mask, it's fine. If you don't want to wear a mask, it's also okay. But it should be your decision. And I see so many things on social media. I'm going to stay with a mask. I'm going to keep wearing the mask, and it's fine. It's okay. It should be your personal decision.
I agree. I mean, that is the quintessential definition of liberty. You make your own decision. The government feeds you information based on scientific data, and you get to choose how and when you're going to implement that. For the Democrats and the socialists, it's all about the collective. For the conservatives and the Republicans, it's all about the individual. And we struggle with this politically, but people need to know that we at Texas Latino Conservatives stand with the individual. We stand with the family. We stand for school choice. We want parents to make the decision where they send their children to school, not bureaucrats that have been shut down for the last year. Our children are falling woefully behind. When the school districts were open, I mean, look at HISD, nearly 40% of our incoming freshman class will not graduate in 4 years. I mean, public education in the urban areas is a disaster. And now it's made worse by the teachers' unions not wanting to work. For God's sake, let's get back to work. Let's let families and parents make their own economic decisions, their own educational decisions, their own healthcare decisions. We do not want government cheese. We do not want powdered milk coming from Washington, D.C.
We had a lot of friends in common that they're business owners and restaurant owners. The restaurant owners were so happy because they suffer a lot. They've been suffering a lot since this started last March in 2020, and there's finally we're gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. All right. Well, today we have a very special guest who is a longtime public. We have a special guest today who is a longtime public servant in Harris County. I've known of this gentleman for many, many, many years before he got involved publicly. He's a personal friend. But in addition to that, he has served the citizens of Harris County and now the citizens of the state of Texas in many capacities. His name is Leo Vasquez. He is a graduate of Yale University. And Leo was the former Harris County tax assessor collector. We served together in Harris County back when Harris County was a good operating government. We had low crime rate. Criminals had to post a bond. Criminals had to show up to court. I saw yesterday where there have been 97 homicides just since the beginning of 2021 committed by individuals turned out by the ridiculous bond reform proposed by former state senator, now county commissioner Rodney Ellis. I mean, Houstonians are dying in droves by these criminals that are being turned out by our state district courts. Fortunately, the Texas legislature is going to get their arms around this, but there is absolutely no excuse that government has abandoned the law-abiding tax-paying citizens for the benefit of the violent felon criminal that are being turned out of the Harris County courts. And so back in the days when Leo and I served, we had a county that had a very low crime rate. We had very little debt. We didn't have any tax anticipation notes. We were in the black financially, and things were going along well. So let me introduce my dear friend, Leo Vasquez, who's now the head. And Leo, if I don't get this right, correct me. You're the chairman of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Thanks for the introduction, Orlando. Glad to be here.
You bet. You bet. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes of your time to be with us and tell us what this very important department does. Now, you serve at the pleasure of the governor, right? So you've been appointed as the chairman of the board by the governor, or were you elected by your colleagues?
No, that's right. Actually, Governor Abbott appointed me to the board in 2017, and then last year in November he elevated me to the chairman of the board of directors.
Very good. And before the current position you have, Leo, you also served in another statewide board, did you not?
A couple of them, as a matter of fact. It all started back in 1998, if I'm aging myself to be there with you, Orlando. Then Governor Bush first appointed me to the commission of the board of directors of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, TDLR, which is kind of an umbrella agency taking care of lots of different areas. So I served there first from 1999 to 2005. And then in 2005, Governor Perry moved me to the board overseeing the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. So, and I actually served, he reappointed me in 2011. So I served two terms in TDCJ, 12 years at TDCJ before I finally got out on parole and moved to TDHCA.
Well, very good. And, maybe we want to talk to you a little bit about the current crime wave in Harris County and what your opinions are since you have been serving. But, Leo, I remember back in the late 80s and in the early 90s, Harris County was, for the lack of a better word, and so was the state of Texas, a killing field. I mean, TDCJ did not have enough capacity, so they were paroling violent criminals onto the streets, and there were heinous crimes being committed. And, one of the things I predicted in 2018 when the liberal Democrats took over in Harris County and instituted this bail reform, which, by the way, bail reform, I thought, because I served on the bail bond board for 12 years in Harris County, I thought the bail bond reform was necessary with respect to misdemeanor cases. There is absolutely no reason that somebody who's indigent needs to be in jail at the Harris County jail for a month or two because they got caught shoplifting. But there's a difference between somebody committing an aggravated assault, aggravated robbery, and then being turned out on personal recognizance to go commit more mayhem on the street. So I predicted that the Harris County crime rate and the Houston crime rate would increase to the levels we haven't seen since the late 80s and early 90s. You have an opinion on what you're seeing?
Well, no, I exactly agree with you. The criminal justice system in Texas, again, we had for many years the reputation of being tough on crime. It was a well-deserved, earned, good reputation. But then in the 90s and 2000s, we actually earned a reputation for being smart on crime. And the way back in my TDCJ days, we really were talking about that the prison system should be used for people we're scared of, not just the people that we're mad at. The people who just, and that goes even more to the jail system, where just exactly like you said, it's hard to argue with keeping someone in for a non-violent crime, misdemeanor type of crime. However, the pendulum now seems to have swung way too far, and people are getting released who truly are violent criminals. The ones that we are scared of, that society needs to be protected from, those need to stay in jail. And like you said, I think Andy Cahan is leading a bunch of information statistics showing all these violent felony folks out on bond and committing even worse crimes when they're out. So we really need to fine tune that whole program.
Leo, I want to just mention, now that you say Andy Kahn, who is with the Crime Stoppers of Harris County, he used to be the crime victims advocate for the city of Houston under several mayors, including Bob Lanier and Lee Brown, and then I think Bill White, and then Anise Parker. But he went over to Crime Stoppers. In the 1990s, Andy Kahn and I were probation officers in Harris County, and we personally witnessed the mayhem being committed on the streets of Houston and Harris County by the lack of capacity at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice because they were turning out parolees that had no business being out on the street. Now, I want to make an editorial comment here. It's an opinion. You know, when you guys go vote, I want you to look at your children and look at your grandmother and look at your husband and decide what party is defending me and my family, and what party, like in Harris County, all these Democrat judges that are turning out violent felon criminals are protecting the criminals. It's real easy, folks. The Republicans believe that if you commit a penal code violation that's a felony, you ought to pay for that. You ought to be incarcerated to protect society. The Democrats, on the other hand, in Harris County, believe that the bail system is too harsh for felons, that felons that don't have money and have committed a violent crime should be out on the streets with you and me. Folks, that is a big difference in philosophy and ideology. I'm sorry, but we cannot allow the Democrats to turn violent criminals out on the streets. Now, I've said enough. I'm going to let Andrea ask you a couple questions, Leo.
Well, Leo, you're being in different positions, not only in the county, but also in the state of Texas. Things have been changed a lot since you started your career in the public service. How did you see not only our county, but our state going to what direction? Because we've been seeing a lot of things changing.
Oh, there definitely have been changes, and including changes in demographics as our state keeps getting even more diverse than it was. We have lots of people moving into our state from places like California, and we need to keep reminding people that they are leaving a system that they viewed did not work, and our system here in Texas has worked. So let's keep improving what we have, not changing it to mirror those places that they escaped from. So I mean, again, those are some of the big changes. I think social media and the way the information flows has influenced a great deal of people getting active and getting involved. Sometimes a little too on the extremes can get their voices heard, amplified more than they deserve. But then there's groups like TLC and others that are really out there able to spread the good word of good government, limited government, the kind of core Republican values.
And you touch a point, very important point, that the way I see it, and when you say the people from California or New York, states or like Illinois coming to Texas, and I see it in the same way, like me coming from Colombia or people coming from Venezuela or from Cuba, trying to bring that thing that we're escaping to this country. And I see it the same way, people from those areas or those states bringing that to this state. If they're escaping from that, why they want to bring that things from there?
Exactly. It doesn't make any sense now, does it? So again, I think it's incumbent upon those of us who have been involved and to stay involved and make sure the messages of those, again, limited government, fiscal responsibility, individual responsibility, those messages need to keep getting repeated and repeated and repeated and shared with everyone around you.
And when you say stay involved, what we can do, not only us at the TLC, because we are like a 0.1% of what it can be done. What we can tell our people, the viewers or the community in general, how to get involved. What is the advice through all these years of experience that you have? And of course, we all make mistakes, but we learn from that. So what do you can tell them based on your experience?
Well, great. And that's actually probably the main message I want to express here today to everyone listening is the importance of getting involved. And there are so many different levels and areas at which you can make that happen. And I say this both in political organizations and in regular, civic community organizations as well. Both are equally important. Get involved with the Texas Latino Conservatives PAC. Join a local pachyderm club, which are all over the state, and go to their meetings and lunches, and you get people like Orlando coming to speak and give you more information, educate you in a civil, respectful environment. There are other non-political organizations that I believe are equally as important, where you can spread the word in groups. In Houston, we have the Livestock Show and Rodeo. I mean, that's such a great place to meet lots of different people. Join the Shriners. I mean, that's another kind of broad organization. There are lots of different ways that are not just political. And then get involved in your community with nonprofit boards. Then you don't have to be a board member. You can be a volunteer. And that's great ways of starting to hear how other people are doing things. Let them know your perspectives, and you become friends and do some good along the way.
So, Leo, let's talk a little bit about, let's be a little more germane with respect to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Now, explain to the public what your role is, what you guys do. As I understand, you guys are very instrumental across the state of Texas in developing housing, particularly for those folks that may be struggling financially. I hate to call it subsidized, but moderate cost housing. I think y'all offer credits to some builders and developers. So tell us a little bit about what you do and explain to people what the process is. In other words, if a developer wants to apply for state housing credits, I mean, what's the process? Application? Do they have to come before a board? Do they have to meet certain criteria? Just give us a little idea of what TDHCA does.
Okay, well, I'll try to share just the highlights of it, because it can be very complicated. The Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs is the state agency that we have two primary areas that we work on. We don't actually finance, we don't fund and build the housing, but we provide low-income housing tax credits to developers to help make affordable housing developments more economical, where they can actually finance it. And it's a part of the financing that they have to have. And they'll typically be, their own equity, there'll be bank finance, there will be lots of times city or county contributions as well in the financing. So it's just a level of that structure. Each year we award in 9% tax credits over probably about $750 to $800 million in value. And these are 10-year tax credits, not to get too in the weeds here, but so we might issue a $1.5 million a year tax credit, which will, in turn, that goes for 10 years. So it's really a $15 million tax credit. The developer can then sell it to an investor, and the investor gets a discount on their tax burden by helping finance in that way. So that's one. The big area is low-income housing tax credits. It's a competitive area. You don't just put in your paperwork and get here's the money, here's the tax credits. So all across the state, there are groups competing, putting in applications that our department looks at very objectively. It's a scoring system, very transparent. And then ultimately it comes up to the board to decide on tiebreakers and issues on scoring mechanisms, and then finally awarding the tax credits. There's also a 4% program that's not as competitive. It's more of an application program. There are direct loan programs that get made as well. So that's more in the development community. For personal individual Texas home buyers, we have a extensive first-time homebuyer program and homebuyer training program where we originate through TDHCA over $1.6 billion a year in in first-time homebuyer mortgages. And that program keeps growing and growing as more and more people move into Texas. So that is one of the areas where we really impact individual homeowners throughout the state of Texas and help foster home. There's a whole bunch of other programs on the community affairs side that we can talk about as well. The energy assistance programs, helping very low-income residents of Texas with their energy bills, which we all know is a big issue recently. But we also go further and have weatherization programs where we can help improve the sustainability and resilience of people's homes by helping fund those types of improvements. There's lots of different homelessness services. We work through community action agencies throughout the state of Texas, doing various other support services that are involved, rental. Oh, I have to say right now, of course, we are implementing the rental assistance program, again, for low-income residents of Texas who are having trouble with making their rents right now due to unemployment situations and COVID. We actually have, at the state level, we're administering over $1 billion of federal money. Okay, so we're getting our money back from the feds, of rental assistance programs. And if you are having trouble and you are at 80% or less of the area median income, you qualify for rental assistance. And our website is Texas Rent. I'm drawing my blank here. Texas. Sorry.
I would get your assistant to look it up and then hand it to you.
TexasRentRelief.com. TexasRentRelief.com.
There you go.
It has all kinds of background
that?
information on it. TexasRentRelief.com.
Okay, maybe Mark can put it up on the screen. Texas Relief.
TexasRentRelief.com.
Okay. Andrea, see if Mark is kind enough to put it up in the graphics on the screen, because I know that there's a lot of Texans that would certainly benefit.
Texas
Relief. And also, if you're a landlord, I mean, you can actually help your tenants by getting involved with this. The payments actually go directly TexasRentRelief.com. You got to stick in the word rent in the middle of that. TexasRentRelief.com. Again, if you're a landlord and you're having tenants that are impacted by COVID and unemployment caused by it, you can actually get involved in this program, and the payments go directly to the landlord. It's not just another check that's getting written to the individual. So again, it's an important program. We've kicked it off statewide, and I encourage anyone that's having these kinds of issues to go look.
Leo, let me ask you a question. When we had this polar vortex come down, unfortunately, a lot of the pipes froze in the apartment complexes in many counties in Texas. Well, I think we all live in Harris County, so let's focus on Harris County. It's really sad for me to see every day, even today, the thousands of people in apartment complexes with no water because the landlords, for whatever reasons, I mean, there's a shortage of labor, there's a shortage of materials. People haven't paid rent in months, so the owners don't have the resources to repair. Is this something that the owners of these apartment complexes can avail themselves of? Is ask for some kind of aid from your department for the reparation of busted pipes?
Unfortunately, no, that's not. We don't actually have programs specific for that. It's going to be through the insurance programs. I'm not personally aware of what local programs there are right now to address that particular situation.
Okay. Now, just to switch gears, Leo, because this is, again, not your first time to serve Texans, but if, memory serves me correct, were you on the Texas Boxing Commission at one time?
Well, basically, the simple answer is yes. I mean, I was officially chairman of the State Boxing Commission for the state of Texas, but that came under the umbrella of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. And now I serve as the commission chairman of that. So I've had Michael Buffer announce me as commissioner at ringside. And he likes to say the whole long name, Vasquez. That was an interesting time.
Yeah, I always thought that was really interesting and probably a lot of fun. And of course, there's some serious responsibilities that go with
Oh, sure.
licensing organizations across the state. And it's just not the boxing, but several other things. But I'm always amazed at the level of service that you have been offering Texans over the decades. My friend Rob Mossbacher one day said that you don't have to hold elected office to make a contribution in your community. And you're certainly one of those people. I mean, you have held elected office, but when you're not serving in a public elected office, you continue to give. You give of your time. I mean, these boards and commissions are not. I mean, first of all, you're not making a ton of money, so you're not becoming a millionaire at it.
You're not getting paid anything. You're not getting
I
paid anything.
understand, and you're giving up of your resources. I mean, your time away from business and family, and you're paying your own fuel there, and you're buying your own accommodations, and it's quite a sacrifice, and I just am delighted that we're able to highlight another great conservative Hispanic leader serving the citizens of the state of Texas. And from my perspective, I just want to say thank you. And Andrea, we need to get you serving the state of Texas. Maybe we get the governor to appoint you to some commission.
What commission you think?
I don't know. There's got to be a commission that oversees broadcasters. I mean, I'm all for a free press, but
for sure.
let me give you an opinion here. I was going to do it after Leo left, but Leo may enjoy this. Maybe they ought to have you overseeing the Truth and Reporting Commission. During the power outage, local television stations in Houston reported with glee, Sheila Jackson Lee claiming that she was going to go get power from New York and California. I mean, how absurd is that? And then this week, one of our commissioners announced, and I'll mention his name, good friend of mine, but really, Adrian, this is ridiculous. He announced that he wants Harris County to get off of the ERCOT grid. Now, really? Okay, so how's he going to deliver electricity to Houston? Because now he has to not only create generation, right? He's going to have to create about, I don't know, anywhere between 2 and 5,000 megawatts of power. And who the hell wants a power plant in their backyard, okay? Number two, you've got to get distribution lines. And to get distribution lines, you have to acquire right-of-way. That is expensive as hell. We have the infrastructure. CenterPoint Energy has the transmission, the poles, and the lines. So Adrian Garcia wants to go to Entergy and interconnect with Louisiana. Let me remind you folks what happened to people in the woodlands this past summer when the hurricanes went through Lake Charles. They had no power. So, this is just brilliant. And the local news media covers it like, oh, really? Well, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, they never ask the tough questions. How are you going to make generation? How are you going to how are you going to acquire the transmission lines, the poles and the wires? How are you going to do the interconnectivity? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, Andrea,
it's not only that they don't.
You should be on the commission over. You should be on the commission overseeing the truth and broadcasting.
It's not only that they don't ask the right questions, Orlando, or the strong or those questions. It's just they don't really do the research. These days is not like back in our days when I used to go every week to cover Commissioner's Court and City Council, and we used to cover criminal court. We used to cover a lot that it was going on, and it was affecting the community. Now it's just the dead body of the day, and is one day I saw that somebody stole a food truck. This is the news that they're making the highlights on our local news, and that's why they're not thinking.
No, it's not only is it ridiculous, it's now gotten to the level of embarrassing to watch local news. It's just, anyway, let's get back to Leo and the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Leo, tell us a little bit about
what we're talking about. What do you think? What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you completely. I agree with both of you. I mean, it's there has to be voices of reason especially in government, and the knee-jerk reactions and trying to swing pendulums way far, from one extreme to the other. That just doesn't work. We have to be more pragmatic. You need to have people think more intellectually, less emotionally, in when they're in positions of leadership, and that's all the way up and down the board. So yeah, that's lacking, I believe, now
Yeah,
in
I
many levels of
agree,
government.
Leo. Let me just say this. Let me make a comment that a good press conference does not make good public policy. I mean, it may sound good for the boring, lazy evening news that a commissioner has said we're going to leave ERCOT, we're going to leave the Centerpoint grid, we're going to create our own. And by the way, let's spend millions of local Harris County taxpayer dollars to investigate that, because at the end of the day, that's what this is. They want to pay a consultant millions of dollars to look into something that is the most ridiculous and the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. Good press conferences don't make good public policy. Memo to Harris County commissioners, please pay attention.
No,
So, Leo,
definitely.
I wanted you to tell us about your background. You are Leo Vasquez, of course, it's a Latino last name. But what is your background?
Well, the family is all from Texas. I mean, my father is Vasquez, obviously, and my mother is Cardenas. She's from San Antonio, and her family from Monterrey, Mexico, from before that. My father from a real small town down in South Texas in Dimmitt County, a little tiny town called Asherton, Texas, outside of Carrizo Springs was the big town nearby. And all the family's been from Texas all over the place. I grew up with lots of cousins and aunts and uncles here in Houston. But the other thing kind of differentiating is that my father was a career Army officer. So we moved all over the world. I was actually born in Germany on his first tour of duty there, and then graduated from high school in Germany again when his second tour of duty. And we've lived all over the place. We lived in Nicaragua. My family lived in Panama City, down in Panama Canal, Panama. And then all across the United States. So I think that gives a lot of different perspective, and so my friends from growing up are spread out all over the country, all over the world. I mean, actually.
So, saying that, you're like a third, fourth generation, probably fourth generation that came to Texas, because you were saying from Monterrey, some of your relatives from Monterrey. Our community has been growing so fast. And what do we need to get as a Latino community to have more voice in Texas, to have more representations in Texas?
But we need to get our Latinos qualified, educated, qualified, get them experience. And some advice that I give to younger up and comers, say get a mentor. Find a mentor that can help you. Befriend Orlando Sanchez and take advantage of some of his years of experience. But also if you're but also if you're really old, like Orlando Sanchez, go be a mentor. Take some people under your wings, some young up and comers, and that's something that I've done in my better half, Suzanne Feather. We've just done over decades where we started helping out younger people, not just Latinos, but just all across the board. And it's been interesting seeing their careers progress over time, where they are now office holders and campaign directors and things like that. So, it's you can make a difference, getting involved, getting people educated. Like I said, attend events. I keep using the example of the pachyderm clubs, which I'm very active in and support their mission. But there are other organizations, again, in the community. Get involved with your chambers of commerce, and not just the Greater Houston Partnership, where it can be pricey to be an individual member, but there's groups like the East End Chamber of Commerce in Houston, which is just a fantastic organization. They do lots of not just business events, but community events. Learn more people. Another little tip that I like to express to everyone, not just the up and comers, but diversify your base of friends. Don't just hang out with people exactly like you that think exactly like you. I have all kinds of Democratic friends and people who we just, our ideas on government are just polar opposite. But I respect them. They respect me, I hope. And we can have some good conversation and find some commonality quite often. If you only hang around with people that think exactly like you or are exactly like you, that's not gonna get you very far.
Leo, and I
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate you about leadership in Texas. I want to mention because it's very important through our 501c4. Because Leo, I think as you know, we have a general purpose PAC, which is Texas Latino Conservatives, where we actually help candidates win elections. We promote causes, whether it's school choice, whether it's pro-life issues, whether it's low taxes, whether it's defending entrepreneurship and free markets in Texas. But we also have a 501c4, which has our Leadership Latino. And through Leadership Latino, we'll take dozens of young kids in Texas and put them through a one-day seminar on how to become a leader, how to become a precinct chairman, how to volunteer with a campaign, how to run for office, how to file forms with the Texas Ethics Commission, how to answer questions to the press, how to raise money, how to dress appropriately. So all of these things help a young person who's thinking about public service, whether it's running for school board or county junior college board or a city council or a county commissioner or a constable. And we've had tremendous success. We have another one of our classes coming up in April north of the Dallas area. So if you go to our website, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, you'll see on the far right, it says Leadership Latino. Click on that, sign up for our next Leadership Latino class. And let me repeat, one of our graduates from 2019 was Mayra Flores down in Hidalgo County, who became the outreach chairman for the Hidalgo County Republican Party. And just a week ago, Monday, announced she's running for the 34th Congressional District down in South Texas, which, Leo, by the way, is being targeted by the National Republican Congressional Committee. So I appreciate you telling young people to get involved, to volunteer. And I want people to know that through Texas Latino Conservatives, our nonprofit, we will help you get there.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Orlando. I mean, we need more programs like that. Again, getting people qualified. I also serve on the board of the Associated Republicans of Texas PAC, which is a pretty large organization, and we raise a lot of money, and we should actually figure out a way that we can help with this type of program. Because again, we're trying to get people qualified and educated. Well, another thing you just touched upon that, again, I encourage anyone who might have an interest in running for office at some point, getting involved with these types of programs like you just described. But the other key point that everyone needs to understand, Orlando and I didn't just leap to the top of positions, whether it's elected officials or as an elected official or as a board chairman of a major state agency. We actually paid our dues over time. I mean, I discourage you from just trying to jump straight in and go straight to running for office. Make sure you've worked on campaigns, helped others. You've done the block walking. I can't tell you how many envelopes I've stuffed over the years and stamps I put on envelopes. I mean, it's those types of things, putting out signs and picking up signs and working the polling location during early voting or election day. All of these basic, throw the ball, catch the ball, hit the ball types of things need to be done, and you need to understand how they work. And you'll gain valuable experience. And while sometimes it's a trudge, other times, when you look back on it, you'll enjoy the fact that you did it. You'll have met lifelong friends and made lifelong friends. And it'll give you more of a foundation for when you do decide it's the right time to run for office. You'll be so much more prepared.
Well, Leo, we want to try to keep the program short. So we know you're busy and you've got phone calls and emails to answer and things to do. So we want to thank you for your leadership in the state of Texas. We want to thank you for your servant heart. You've been serving the citizens of the state of Texas and the people of Harris County for a long, long time. You and I have enjoyed a personal relationship that spans over a quarter of a century. I'm proud of you. You're one of those tough Tejanos that is a conservative and keeps Texas the shining star that it is among the 50 states of the union. So thank you, Leo, for being with us, and we look forward to having you again on the program pretty soon.
Well, Andrea, Orlando, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the work Texas Latino Conservatives is doing around the state. So keep up the great work.
Leo, thank you so much. Muchas gracias por haber estado con nosotros, and we hope to see you soon.
Okay, nos vemos pronto. See.
Andrea, we should have made Leo speak more Spanish. Darn it.
When I was talking to him and booking him for the show, the first thing that he said, like, oh, just to clarify, the show is going to be in English, right? I said, well, yeah, with my English, but yeah, it's going to be in English.
Yeah. Look, I want to, again, I want to thank all the wonderful people in Dallas and Lubbock and Midland, Odessa, and particularly in El Paso, which is, if you folks haven't spent time in El Paso, it is a beautiful city, a lot of history. We're looking forward to going back to El Paso. We're going to flip El Paso, the home of Beto O'Rourke, which is actually Robert Francis O'Rourke. We don't call him Beto, we call him Francis. But anyway, it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful county. And we want to thank everybody we've met. We want to thank all the conservative leaders we met in the South Plains and in West Texas. I did fail to mention one person who I think is just a jewel of a human being. He's an attorney in Midland, and his name is Dan Corrales. Dan was featured in our El Chisme magazine or newsletter that we send out generally on a monthly basis. If you don't receive the El Chisme newsletter, you can subscribe by going to our website, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. But in this month's, or actually February's edition, you will see the story of Dan Corrales. He is an attorney who is a veteran of the United States Army, served and was injured. He had a life-changing experience when he had a medical issue at home, and he was brought back to life literally. He's a real leader in the Midland area. He's volunteered to run many, many conservative campaigns in Midland. So, Dan, we want to say hi if you're watching. We're proud of you, and we look forward to seeing you guys again. So, Andrea, it was a great trip in the High Plains in West Texas, and we're looking forward to going down to the RGV, that's the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, to cultivate, engage, motivate, educate more young Latinos who are going to be the future conservative leaders of the state of Texas. So having said that, I'm going to bail out, bid you guys a farewell, and let Andrea close the program. We'll see you guys next week. And we have a guest next week, right?
Yes, we do. We do have a guest next week, and the following week we're going to be in Longview.
Excellent.
Ok, Orlando, well, thank you so much, muchas gracias. Y les quiero recordar que nos visiten en nuestra página de internet, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com. Please visit us, join us. It's only $35 a membership, but through the whole year, it's TexasLatinoConservatives.com. Help us to help. That's the only way that we can grow this family, that we can send a message to you guys and to be able to do all of the work that we're doing, with not only with the Texas Latino Conservatives, but also with the Latino leadership. So see you guys next Wednesday. Nos vemos el próximo miércoles. Muchas gracias por habernos acompañado. Chao, chao.